But another and unquestioned requirement lay at the core of missionary labors. If the gospel message was to be accepted,
that he has made and what Wadi Love has produced in him. So, sir, we are greatly honored that you have come. I know the visit has been a very brief one, but it is historical. And we do hope that when you have time, you'll be able to come back and see more of Wadi Love than you have seen today.
the minister receives a hero's send-off, partly for his role as one of the leaders who fought for Zimbabwe's independence, and partly, no doubt, for being the occasion of an extra day's holiday. Watching scenes like this, it would be hard to deny that the coming of Christianity to Central Africa has in the end brought many blessings. These children of Zimbabwe look forward to opportunities and freedoms unknown to their parents. Yet the cost has been a large one. Much of value in African culture was distorted or buried beneath the intolerant certainties of a foreign culture. And who can say whether in